Stop asking why questions, because that comes across confrontational. If you want to understand the reason behind something, instead of why did you do that, you say, John, would you help me understand? Transforming asking why questions to would you help me understand?
Welcome to the Seismic Shift podcast, where we explore the shifts that are shaking up the way that we work and the way that we live. And thank you to Loyola University New Orleans for their incredible support. I am so excited to introduce you today to the one and the only Feyzi Fatehi. Welcome, Feyzi.
It's such a delight to be on your show, Michelle. I'm a huge fan of Seismic Shift, your new book coming out, your collaboration with my favorite mentor, coach, and thought leader, Marshall Goldsmith. So it's such an honor to be on your show.
Oh, Feyzi. Yeah, to our listeners, that's how Feyzi and I met. We actually were at a party celebrating Marshall's 75th birthday last March. Mm-hmm. He's born on St. Patrick's Day. And it was such a lovely time. We got to hang out over brunch. We got to hang out at his birthday celebration and really had meaningful discussions of what was happening in Silicon Valley, the seismic shifts that he was seeing and the seismic shifts that I was seeing. And so I knew when I was putting together my roster for season 3 that I had to have Feyzi on. Now, because I know he's a rock star, let me share with you what a rock star he is. Not only has he reached the very top as CEO of Corent Technology, he received the Lifetime Achievement, the Cody Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019. Let me kind of give you perspective of some of the former recipients of that award. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Bill Gates. So this is a really big award. In addition, Forbes named him as a disruptor in the software industry, and he's a Silicon Valley veteran, and he is a true technology expert who also is a beautiful human. So I can't wait to start this conversation. And why don't I ask for you to share with the listeners, how in the world did you get here? What is your story, Feyzi?
Thank you, Michelle. I'm really honored. Regarding the award, my wife thinks somebody made a clerical error. That's how I got it. But putting that aside, how did I get here? Two answers to it. While I was speaking at Harvard and the question was, how did you get here? And I had to come up spontaneously. I said, I'm a product of great parents, great teachers, and great coaches. Marshall Goldsmith being on the top of the list. So sometimes in life, you get lucky with parents, with teachers, with circumstances, with mentors, with coaches. Putting that aside, I describe my story as a man in search of meaning. Since I was a kid, trying to make sense of things. And as an 8-year-old kid, I remember the first book that I read was about the solar system and expansive thinking at night, looking up at the galaxies and see where we are, what is our place in the universe. And again, trying to make sense. And one of them that led to me getting my bachelor's degree in solar engineering was, why aren't we using the God-given free solar energy and we are going deep into the earth and bring fossil fuel out? As a kid, I was asking adults and they were thinking like the equivalent of what have you been a spoken kid? What are these questions? What are you even asking? So being curious and in search of meaning, making sense out of things, both personally, but also professionally. Like, what do I want to be when I grow up? How can I make a difference? What would be my impact? What are our values? What is the meaning of life? Monty Python's meaning of life. Later on, I saw that when I was going to school in Cambridge. So all of the above, dealing with a lot of mysteries and trying to demystify as much as possible. That's why some friends say you have a philosophical angle to yourself. And I had to look up philosophy. What does it exactly mean? And it's the science of meaning. Philosophy is the science of meaning. I said, yeah, I do have a philosophical angle, which 2 years ago was honored to give the commencement speech at UCI, School of Humanities, that includes philosophy. I said, it's coming full circle. So that's a little bit about how did I get here.
Oh my gosh, I love that story. I didn't know many pieces and parts of that story. So what took you? The last I heard was Cambridge, and then how did you get to Silicon Valley?
I was in a bed and breakfast. I even remember the address, 17 Jones Road. And I had an American roommate in the bed and breakfast, and he educated me about the American education system. Unlike the rest of the world, you can drop a class if you don't like it. You don't like the textbook. You don't like the teacher. You don't like the direction the sun shines in the classroom. You drop the class, and my jaw dropped. Oh my God. That's the real, tangible, palpable meaning of American freedom, that put the choice, the freedom in the hands of individual rather than the state mandates that you have to take X number of classes, like in the UK, O level, A level. And if you fail one of them, you fail the entire year. Very archaic method. In the US, you pick your own classes, you drop one, you take an incomplete. I said, oh my God. I already felt like an American at that moment. I said, this is aligned with my freedom of, being free. And 6 months later, I was in Princeton. I was lucky to make it to the top of the junior class. And then it's a long story for another conversation. I ended up in Norman, Oklahoma, and graduated from Norman High with highest honor. And the principal was kind enough to write to the United States Secretary of Education, and he hand-signed a certificate of leadership and academic excellence for me. As a 16-year-old, that was Welcome to America certificate. I said, this is how this nation is attracting the best talents in the world. Not only that, but give them the opportunity to become a better version of themselves and make a contribution to the world. So here we go.
That's incredible. So you make it out to Silicon Valley, and then rather than getting a PhD in artificial intelligence, which you were considering a graduate degree in, you decided to get an MBA?
Yeah, that's kind of, sometimes I question my judgment, but I was working for HP. I was hired directly when I graduated from UT Austin. As computer science. Before that, I was a solar engineer. I switched for different reasons. And I went to the chairman of HP. HP had a very low power distance. There was no person at HP with an office with a door. When you're in the building, at building 20 in Palo Alto, that's where the CEO was. And you could just walk to their office. And of course, there's a secretary who asked permission. So talk to this gentleman. His first name was Rick, if I remember. He was the father of HP Laserjet, became the chairman of HP. I said, hey, as a 20-some-year-old kid, may I seek your advice to choose between a PhD in artificial intelligence at Stanford or getting my MBA, not at Stanford, but at Santa Clara, because it allowed part-time. Stanford had to be full-time, and I loved my job. And he took his time and reasoned with me, asked questions, and we decided getting the MBA is more in line with my personality, more aligned with my future self that I was dreaming about. And that's basically, and I do not regret it, because I can hire 5 PhD in artificial intelligence to educate me and make me smarter. But that decision was a more aligned decision. And it took 4.5 years when I was working on building mega multi-billion-dollar alliances at HP, including SAP, bringing SAP to the US. As I was flying around the world and building these alliances, I was doing my MBA. So in that sense, it became more embedded in my practice rather than study the theory and go back to your old practices. 1 class a term, 2 classes a term, and you build it in, you practice it. So it becomes part of your DNA.
Oh gosh. Well, that was a wise choice for sure. And then you continued ascending to the top, and now as the CEO of Corent Technology. What are you seeing some of the seismic shifts taking place in business right now in leadership? What are the seismic shifts you're seeing?
I can address it in two ways. One is definition of leadership, and the fact that there are so many kinds of leadership, such as transactional leadership, project leadership, task-oriented leadership, and I can go on and on and on. So when people talk about leadership, I generally, if it's appropriate, try to qualify that a little bit, because I don't want to put my assumption on that question. But if you're talking about leadership of an economic entity, an organization with a goal, with a purpose, specifically in Silicon Valley, I believe there is a mega shift that has been at work for years, and it's becoming more accentuated, Michelle. And that is moving from transactional leadership to inspirational leadership. Not to abandon transactions. The world, at the end of the day, you got to have a transaction. But are you trying to be motivational, which is more aligned with transactions, give somebody a bonus to go close the transaction, motivational, or you want to be inspirational, to give people something that is meaningful to them, they feel being part of a bigger mission, and then they would accomplish the tasks, the projects, the transactions from the point of inspiration, rather than, hey, I make a bigger bonus or I'm motivated to do it, which is nothing wrong with them, by the way. We are taking it to that next level of human potential. How do we tap into a higher level of human potential rather than stay at lower levels? I believe in so many people who are more enlightened, they go deeper. That seismic shift is in action. People don't talk about it, of course, because you're leading a company, you got to generate results for the shareholders. But the mechanics, the way you do it, shift without announcing it from transactional to inspirational. And that's one of the major shifts that I'm noticing every day.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So could you share, kind of compare and contrast the old Silicon Valley culture, organizational culture, compared to what you're seeing today? Because I coach some leaders out in Silicon Valley who tell me that there were days where you just slept under your desk. You worked at all costs. It was a culture of fear, and yet you believed in the purpose, but you had no life. So talk to us about what it was like then, and then how that has transformed today.
Yeah, so I cannot speak for the entire Silicon Valley, but let me give you some tangible examples. So I was lucky to be at Hewlett-Packard, HP, which was a combination of HP Enterprise and HP and Agilent, three major multi-billion-dollar companies. And the culture was designed by Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard. And it was, I called it the 10 Commandments. There were 10 principles that we all abided by. One of them was innovation as a value. We value innovation. We value customer satisfaction. We value diversity, which I have absolutely no clues in, like, late 80s exactly what is it, what diversity. And once I had a chance to be with Lou Platt, who was a CEO, wonderful man. And he said, any questions? I said, yes. Like, by the way, one of the 10 principles, we called it the HP way. I informally call it the 10 Commandments, is diversity. Can you elaborate on that? It's a silly question, but I had the guts to ask stupid questions all my life. And he said, that means that we as an organization should reflect the entire customer base. And the entire customer base of HP looks like the world. There are people with different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different philosophies, we want to reflect them because we are here to serve our customers. So we got to be as diverse as our customer base. I said, wow, what a great spontaneous answer that made perfect sense. And I'm sure there are so many different angles to diversity, to inclusion, but that was one. So HP's culture was based on meaning, based on the HP way, the 10 Commandments, and we had to take a class on HP way in the first 30 days of being an employee. To the contrast, I had friends who were at Intel, and the culture intentionally was confrontation. There was a lot of fear involved. At HP, I was being inspired. Lots of positive reinforcement was going on without me even noticing as a 20-some-year-old kid. My friends at Intel were constantly being confronted, lots of fear. It was a successful company. I don't want to judge it. I'm just sharing that different cultures at different companies. So Silicon Valley necessarily does not have the same culture across different companies. But the way I understand it, Michelle, thanks God, many of the people at HP went on and became CEOs and many other companies. You name 10 companies, probably 7 of them had a good chunk of HP culture in them. So that culture has started becoming more prevalent in Silicon Valley, that you got to treat human beings as human beings. And that would generate better outcomes. Even if somebody's purely result-oriented, outcome-oriented, shareholder value-oriented, it's best to bring the best out of the people rather than to suppress them, to depress them, to demotivate them. And some people are getting it.
Oh, I love that. And so, and I did not realize this makes complete sense, Feyzi, as to why you rose to the level of success you have as the CEO of Corent Technology. You in your 20s got to be a part of a culture that was inspirational, that was collaborative, that was based on values and how you treat one another. I mean, the CEO was a man ahead of his times to say diversity means we have to reflect our customer base. That's exactly right. And diversity pays off every single time. So you had an incredible mentor. You had this hierarchical structure that was flattened, that really gave you access to very important, powerful leaders in Hewlett-Packard that made you the leader that you are today. So thank you for kind of painting that picture for us. And so I want to segue into what prompted you to write your new book, Democratizing SaaS. Tell us about that.
Yeah, in early 90s, I had the pleasure of running into Steve Jobs at Stanford. It was more or less coincidental. It was a planned coincidence, let's put it that way. And he encouraged me to find my fire in the belly. He said, Feyzi, where is your fire in the belly? You keep talking about all these corporate ladder you're climbing, you're doing your MBA, you already had a master's. Before doing a second master's, I'm a college dropout. Where is that fire in the belly? When you find it, your life would change. And during the 90s, that was nagging in there. And so the bottom line is a long story. Whitney Johnson has captured it in some interviews in Disrupt Yourself podcast of hers. But I decided that it's time to build a new operating system for the software of the future. Not for something for the past. There is an absolute need for it. There will be a need. So we predicted that computing will become a utility. Computers, storage, and networking, represented by IBM, EMC, and the likes of Cisco. They become commodity. Today, utility and commodity, and today we call it the cloud. So we predicted that, like we're talking about the year 2000. And then we didn't know who the winners would be. We said IBM probably, and Dell and HP would be the leaders. They're leaders in computers, and therefore there would be leaders in computers as a service. In other words, the cloud. And we were absolutely wrong. The bookstore, online bookstore, became the number one cloud computing, Amazon Web Services, and then Google, the leader in search, and then Microsoft, the leader in PCs. So we were completely surprised by people who were supposedly be the leaders who didn't, because some people were not as visionary as possible. The same reason that Kodak missed the digital photography. How could Kodak miss digital photography and go bankrupt? No one would imagine that. It's a subject of a study of how things work. So we decided that because of the utility computing, software will be delivered as a service. So not only hardware would be delivered as a service, we call it the cloud, but the software applications, let's say enterprise resource management, ERP, CRM, customer relationship management, inventory management, transportation, hospitality, healthcare, you name it. All these software applications that would impact the world, run the world, would be delivered as a service, as opposed to you buy them, download them, install it, and then occasionally go update it, and so on. And the conclusion was transforming software to software as a service is a Herculean task. How can we make it as easy as possible to remove a major hurdle in human progress? And came up with an operating system for SaaS. So embarked on building the operating system of the future that today we call SaaS Ops, SaaS operating system. And in partnership with AWS, and of course, other cloud vendors are more than welcome to join this partnership. We are revolutionizing the presentation of software as a service instead of 2 or 3 years for every AI company who have a solution for diagnosing cancer better, for educating a kid with learning disabilities. Instead of taking 3 years and millions of dollars to transform that software genius invention into a software as a service, by plugging that software into our SaaS Ops, runs on AWS, voila. In a matter of hours to a few days, that software becomes software as a service with all the bells and whistles, capabilities, subscription management, metering, monitoring, monetizing, all that today people reinvent the wheel one application at a time, years of development, millions of dollars. That barrier, that hurdle will go away. And that way we are contributing to human progress and making good technology available faster, better, and in a more cost-effective way. And the book is all about it. Wrote it during Democratizing SaaS, published by Forbes. They encouraged me to write it during the pandemic. They said, Feyzi, you always say, I gotta go. There is nowhere to go. You're sitting at home. So why don't you just sit down and write the book, which becomes a manifesto for the next chapter of cloud computing, which is all about delivering software as a service.
This makes complete sense to me. So when Steve Jobs asked you the question and really challenged you, you've got to find what is the fire in your belly, Feyzi. What's the fire in your belly? You found the fire in your belly.
Found the fire in the belly, yeah.
And the way I look at it, it was the merger of your superpowers, of your true gifts. So one of your true gifts that HP saw in you when you were in charge of the global partnerships is your ability to connect with others and really listen and empathize and form these relationships. You're incredibly adept at that. And it comes from a very genuine place of caring about another human. So you have your beautiful gifts of those with this incredible mind that was a business mind, right? And that you wanted to create. And so you have the business mind, you have your beautiful relationship, and then you're a natural servant leader. you want to serve, you want to help. And so to me, this now makes complete sense because I didn't know what democratizing SaaS was. And thank you for sharing it. And now I just have such clarity, like, wow, you were put in the right place at the right time to use the beautiful gifts that you were given.
You're very kind. First of all, thank you for your kind words. At least among the things that you credited me with, I like to serve. And a friend of Marshall wants to mention, Feyzi, isn't it amazing that you genuinely want to serve? And I got it from my dad. His life philosophy was you serve, therefore you live, or the other way around. He was all about service. And I believe I got that DNA from him, the joy of being able to serve with no other. It's not means to an end. It's just the end to privilege of serving. And he said, not only that's your philosophy, but your whole company is about service, software as a service. No coincidence. Everett Alexander, helped connect the dots. He said, wow, in life, sometimes Steve Jobs' commencement at Stanford, he said, just go about your life. Later on, you connect the dots. And I've started connecting the dots. And it's amazing that when you're genuine to your values and you serve, later on you look at, wow, you have been connecting the dots without knowing it. And they're all coming together. So thank you for your kind words.
Oh, that was such a beautiful story of your journey. I just love it. And so now what's next for you? What's next?
Yeah.
Seriously, what are your goals now?
Yeah, to serve and to truly democratize SaaS, because it's a niche that I can be effective. Imagine the world without the Windows operating system. I remember when I was in Texas going to school, Michael Dell was there at the same time. Like my roommates they were writing operating systems because there was no prevalent operating system. And nobody uses operating system. It's because you need to run your Excel, your Word, your current Zoom meeting, video meeting. It's for another purpose. But imagine for every application that somebody wanted to develop, they had to write an operating system. They had to write a database for it. It would have taken years. Now people quickly do it. They don't even remember that there is an operating system that somebody wrote. There is a database that somebody put together. We want to eliminate these years of developing SaaS by making it so transparent that people don't even think about it. How is that for making a contribution to the world and to others, people's speedy success, and people who receive that software as a service at a cost-effective manner so they can focus on their business, whether they're in grocery store business, furniture business, or healthcare business. Give them the tool to do their job better, faster, cheaper. So to me, manifesting or help manifest this democratization of SaaS could be a lifetime achievement for myself. It makes my heart sing, and I feel very honored that it's not about me. It's about, it takes a village, the investors, the partners, the employees, just like the advisors, the coaches. And it goes down to, when I wrote the book, the hardest section to write was the acknowledgement section, because I was afraid of missing someone that has impacted me and us in order to deliver this. So, some of the people that you know are part of that acknowledgement because they have Marshall, of course, Francis Hasselbein, Alan Mullally, and so on, Jim Kim. These are people who have impacted me at some point, that you get your mojo from their teachings, from their inspiration, and bring it together and focus it on delivering something of value.
You know what this reminds me of? I forgot we have another business partner in common, Ted Elliott, of the CEO of Capado. And when you're talking about democratizing SaaS and SaaS being a service to help others, one of the things that Capado is trying to do is to help their clients get home for dinner. who are trying to, I love that motto. We will help you get home to dinner with your family because they're streamlining the process. And so I love what you all are doing.
He's a great leader. Yeah,
he's a great leader. He's a great visionary, brilliant. And so last, I really want, thank you so much for your time, Feyzi.
My pleasure.
And I want you to share, just if you have a couple of tips, it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3 for all of our listeners of how they can find the fire in their belly, how they can achieve this success, which is not just, I mean, you're at the top of your game. Yes. And it's so much more. You have purpose. You have meaning. You are inspiring so many people. You're helping so many people. So could you give tips to our listeners of how they can follow suit?
I would be honored to. Generally, sometimes we think about grand things. I sometimes focus on very little things to make a big difference. One of them, I learned from one of my coaches years back, Kathy Hawk, said, Feyzi, stop asking why questions, because that comes across confrontational. If you want to understand the reason behind something, instead of why did you do that, you say, John, would you help me understand? Transforming asking why questions to would you help me understand? It fosters collaboration, fosters understanding, and avoids confrontation. Another one is I learned from someone, I can't remember who, said, never say thank you. Always say thank you for something somebody did. A lot of emails I see the response is thank you. Like for what? What did you see? Thank you for quickly turning around this. Thank you for your brilliance of a great idea. Accentuate that idea. Take advantage of that rather than just, it takes maybe 2 more seconds. Another one that I practice and I learned from others is catch people doing something right and highlighting it to their attention. That helps with energizing people, inspiring people. It creates human connection that somebody saw me, somebody heard me. I matter. Little things like that would really work. And sometimes you want to ask someone to do something. Instead of saying, can you do that? You can say, would you be willing to do that? You see, with a little bit of change in words, the tone changes, the energy changes, the level of collaboration changes. Those are some little things that I wanted to put on the table.
Oh my gosh, your advice is incredible. Thank you. And as you said, Marshall and I are working on my second book right now. And one of the chapters is shift your language, because your language affects everything and everyone around you. And we are going to use you as an expert in that chapter. So thank you, Feyzi. Thank you so much again to all of our listeners for tuning in to the Seismic Shift podcast. I mean, what a stimulating discussion from the disruptor out in Silicon Valley. Feyzi, thank you again. Y'all have a beautiful
My pleasure, Michelle. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on the Seismic Shift. And before you go, can I ask one favor of you? Do you mind sharing today's episode with a leader you know? The power of this conversation is found in your using it and sharing it to create real connection in your life. Lastly, I'd like to thank Loyola University New Orleans and the Terra Firma audio team for helping bring this content to life.